My name is Mun-Wai. You can also call me MW. I have been on this agile journey for over 20 years. I worked in organizations all over the world, started in engineering, and ended with my last corporate title as chief of staff when I started messing around in HR, finance, and facilities. My goal is simple. I go after anything or any group that hinders the team working effectively together to produce a product that delights the customers. You can find more information on my website.
Hello, I'm JF. It's short for John Francis, which is my first name. I've been working in Silicon Valley for more than 30 years now. My Agile journey started in 1998 when, as an engineer, I decided to try things I had read about on net news. I was very amazed with the results I got, and I've been doing Agile since then, constantly growing and learning.
Now, before we start, let's watch a short video.
Climate crisis has some fighting for action. One lawmaker in New Zealand was doing just that, and she left her critics in Parliament baffled, but not over her policies, over her witty response to a heckler.
That's right. 25-year-old Green Party MP Chloe Warwick was speaking about the zero carbon bill and how it will affect generations to come when she was interrupted by another lawmaker who jeered at her age. Take a listen.
In the year 2050, I will be 56 years old. Yet, right now, the average age of this 52nd Parliament is 49 years old. Okay, Boomer. Current political institutions have proven themselves incompetent at thinking outside of a short political term.
Do you know that for the first time in history, we have up to 5 generations in the workplace today? These are the 5 generations in their year bands. And by the way, 40 years ago, in 1980, there were only 3 generations in the workforce: the GI generation, traditionalists, and baby boomers. GIs were 55 years old at that time. Gen X was only 15 years old, too young to work. Do you think that the generations are very different? Here are magazine covers ranging from 1976 to 2019. It doesn't look like we're so different after all. All generations want the same thing: to be respected, recognized, and rewarded for our work. The difference between them is the form factor that motivates us. Think about it. In the 1990s, you know you have arrived if the company gives you a company car. Today, people don't want the burden of finding a parking space at work or at home. However, they are happy if the company would pay for services like Uber. Thus, the desire is still the same. The company pays for transportation to and from work. However, the form factor is quite different. Okay, I'm having issues again with my... Here we go. Here's an example of what matters to which generation in what life stage. Looking at the graph, the bigger the circle, the more it matters. Today, millennials view that they are recognized if you give them time. So more time equals more recognition. PTO, flex time, autonomy, these are their choice of currency. Here's how the 5 generations are distributed in the US workforce today. You may have noticed that rewards and recognition have actually changed over the years. They are changed by people in management at the time based on their experience. Today, the preceding generations make up 60% of the current US workforce. They are mostly in management and have put the current reward and recognition systems in place based on their perspective. That creates a clash with succeeding generations who are doing most of the actual work. The company also needs to be aware that workers could get pressure from their families with their parents imposing their own expectations on what reward and recognition should be. Additionally, the company itself can apply pressure as well because the people in leadership also have their own expectations. That's why if a company has only one reward and recognition system, then almost half of its workers will disengage. And disengaged workers are less innovative, less likely to stay long-term, and focus more on output than business value, decreasing the company's agility.
So how do we create a reward and recognition system that is adaptable enough for all generations? Well, let us tell you our stories. I'll go first. At this company, after the team met over 80% of their goals, We had some fun team events. And on top of that, we gave out special awards. Now, these awards were not monetary and they're inexpensive. Let me give you some examples. So one prize was the Mickey Mouse Fantasia hat. Now, this prize went to the one who made the biggest impact to the team through his ideas and solutions. Now, that person also flew to all our global offices to help, hence the wizard hat. Now, this became a well sought after prize because people thought they would get to travel all over the world. Now, another award was the Firefighter Award. The prize was a blow up toy fire extinguisher for the person who consistently put out fires. Now, this award led to responsibilities being remapped in the team. I am not going to detail here about the remapping. It will be illustrated in JF's story and my radical story later. Now, there were other awards, but I think you get the idea. We had these events twice a year, so long as the team met over 80% of their goals. Other groups like Product and UX UI wanted to participate when they heard about these awards. We required them to come up with a creative prize. Money by itself is not good enough. So one of the engineers who was awarded told me, "This is a one-of-a-kind, Mun-Wai. I'll treasure it all the time." And he proudly displayed that in his cube with an anti-theft device so no one could steal it. By the way, HR was not involved in any of these activities. So what was being done? We tailored the awards and incentives to the team, unlike HR's traditional go-to methods. When the team likes the awards and incentives, they realize management knows them, cares about them, and appreciates them. And in turn, they work harder to earn those awards. Now, we started in the headquarters, but team members told people in other offices because it was so much fun. And now all the offices follow suit and did their own version. Word of caution, this is a different budget from the annual bonus and salary increase. So make sure to include this into the next budget cycle. Now, once this kind of incentive was proven successful, my boss and I wanted to see if we could do something similar to get the team recognized on the company level. So we convinced the department heads and regional general managers to have some special awards during the quarterly town halls and local all-hands meetings. Those are all monetary awards in the US in the form of gift cards, but different form factors for different local offices. Basically, whatever motivates the people in that office. Anyone can nominate, as long as they write a little blurb about the nominee's impact. The nominee can be a person or entire team, and we encourage the nominations to be an entire team. Eventually, this propagated to the company all hands. And for all the winners announced in the town halls and all hands, the winnings are now a part of the HR record.
For me, I was a senior engineering lead at an enterprise company overseeing a critical project. My manager, who I adored, was very good, but he had a sly side. He came to me one day and said, "JF, we have a problem. If we want our product to be on the next CD release in 3 months, you need to attend the weekly CD board review meeting." So most of our enterprise customers didn't like to download things because of security concerns, hence the CD. Of course, as an engineer, I was like, oh, meetings? However, this was my baby. I was architecting this entire product end to end and had my team doing Scrum. I really wanted to see this thing in our customers' hands. So I personally made it my mission to attend these meetings because I didn't want to wait another 9 months for the next CD release. So a few weeks after that first CD release, my manager surprised me. He said, "JF, great news. I'm promoting you to a manager." And I was like, "Thanks, but I don't want to be a manager." He said that I was already doing a first line manager's job, all the things that I was doing with the team, getting them to deliver the product into customers' hands multiple times, meeting with each member to help solve their problems, interfacing with other departments in the company so the product goes out. These were all duties of a first line manager. What happened here, my manager slyly took me out of my engineering silo and aligned my day-to-day work with the outcome in the end. The alignment enabled me to take on some of his responsibilities that allowed me to be promoted.
Now, let me tell you about a radical approach. In another company, I asked the teams, what does it take to get the product into the customer's hand? And they said, "Oh, you mean what does it take to launch or release a product, right?" I said, "No, because the released product doesn't necessarily reach the customer's hand. And they said, but that's not our problem. I told them that they should care and make sure customers are delighted. Otherwise, customers won't pay and we won't get our salaries. So they started listing out what they do, their own responsibilities, and how those map into that question. They soon realized that did not come close to answering the question. So they started talking to the managers and others about what their responsibilities were in relation to that question. Once they understood those responsibilities, they realized some functions could not join them as a team, like marketing, and they now knew how to interface with those groups better. They also wanted to take some of their managers' responsibilities into the team. The managers let them try, and some even coached them how to do those duties. Now, when the team took on additional duties, they were remapping the roles within the team to include these new duties with the manager's help. The team and the managers worked together to redefine the criteria for promotions. This way, a clear growth path emerged and levels were redefined. It allows the team members to decide what to learn and which path to choose. It sets the stage for the promotion ladder. Interestingly, the managers liked what was happening because the team took over the duties they didn't like to do. They thought, maybe this could work with their own bosses. So they went to the directors and asked, where do you fit in relation to what does it take to get the product into the customer's hand? Are there any duties related to that which I can try? That led them to remap responsibilities and redefine levels and growth path. Now, granted, these managers have good relationships with their bosses, so they felt safe to discuss such matters freely. But the funny thing is, the directors were also liking it and wondered if they could do the same with their VPs. Now, they were more cautious because some VPs do not like being questioned what their part is in the process. So for those directors, they told their VPs their managers took initiative by taking on some of their duties. You know, the one that they didn't like? And they asked, are there things you don't like in your job that perhaps I can help? When the directors didn't understand why a VP did a certain thing, they would ask for the purpose, which sparked some interesting discussions, some duties remapped again, new growth paths identified, and levels redefined. At each level, people now know exactly what the growth path is, how the levels are defined, how they can get promoted, and what being promoted means. With all the remapping and redefining, we still do not touch the corporate taxonomy. We separated out the roles and responsibilities. For the outside world, they still see people getting salary rises and being promoted to manager, director, VP, which is the older generation's expectation of reward and recognition, while the responsibilities associated with those roles have changed. This was done one office at a time. We notify local and corporate HR once we redefine the levels and promotion criteria. What started out in a team propagated up the levels and became a radical change. We also did agile budgeting, but that's a story for another time. So what are the takeaways? The key question of what does it take to get the product into the customer's hand teaches the team how to have a holistic view instead of just focusing on their own little part, may it be UX UI design or coding or testing, etc. It helps the team to focus on outcome instead of output and to identify the value and waste in the system. It also helps align the strategy and purpose to their day-to-day work. It is also tailored to the teams. It can be team-driven, like in my experience, or manager-driven, like in JF's experience, where the manager acted as a coach to him. Some of the responsibilities belong to the manager previously, and now they're included in the team. You may have noticed the pattern is replicated across teams and up the levels. By the way, when you replicate up the level, as I mentioned in my story, the generation gap between two immediate levels is not that big. So you can understand what motivates your immediate lower level and can support them, even if that doesn't motivate you. That allows incentives to be changed to suit the needs of the generations in that level. Now, if you compare the head of the company to an individual team member, the generation gap is so big that there is very little to no understanding of what motivates a lower level. And because of that, unfortunately, most of the time, the higher-ups would dismiss the wants and needs of the lower levels. That's why the pattern is replicated up the levels one level at a time. As the next generation gets promoted, they can change incentives and rewards to satisfy the needs at that level. Last but not the least, put thought into the rewards because it drives behavior. So be creative. You may notice in my story that not only those rewards were different, hence being creative, but they change from time to time. You need to keep it fresh, change it up. Otherwise, people would game the system. When you do each of these 4 things, roles and responsibilities are remapped, levels and growth paths are redefined with agile values in them, and people are vested and engaged. And the result is, you now have an adaptable and agile reward and recognition system that satisfies all generations and levels. So in conclusion, the change is more about rewards and recognition based on purpose and values. Once you realize this, then you can come up with a system that is more adaptable. However, you need to keep it fresh and be creative, tailor it to the teams, try small before going big, so team to department, individual office to entire company all over the world, cautious to radical. And you definitely need to trust in the level where you want to get to. Now, when you start going radical, you will remap roles and responsibilities, redefine levels and growth paths, and re-looked at organization structure. And if you go really radical, you even touch on agile finance.
One more thing. Is it really all about generations? It may look like a generational context, but it can also be applied in multiple contexts. For example, cultural. Different countries and cultures can have a reward and recognition system that is different when you look at it, but at the end, the entire company's purpose is reflected.
Let me give you an example. This very creative example is to address the familial and parental pressure because they have their own expectations of what reward and recognition should be for their children. So in Asian culture, parents expect their kids to be at least a director when he's in his mid-30s. So to them, status and title go together. Missing one, you're considered good for nothing. However, the kid may not even want to go into management, hence the clash at home and affecting his work. A general manager from one of the offices in Asia wanted to find a way to attract and recruit better candidates. And somehow he found a way to get that office to be awarded by the city and province that they're in. Now, the award is not just the best place to work in the entire province, but it is a prestigious award. I can't describe to you what it is because no equivalent exists in the Western culture. Now, interestingly, there are a number of unintended consequences. First, people in the office are proud of the award and they tell their parents about it. Now, the parents can brag about their kids without having the kids needing to be a director or VP. They would say something like, "Do you know that my son works in this company which is awarded this ABC award?" Second, people in the office work even harder to ensure they're worthy of the award. And third, when the other officers heard about this, they decided to do a similar thing for their local offices. Lastly, a more profound effect is that the award elevated this Asia office achievements. When headquarters started singing praises, it further elevated this Asia office in the eyes of the other offices around the world. So that's the example of cultural context. What other context can there be? You tell us. That's it for our talk. Thank you.